Hi, my name is Ainsley Battles. Thank you for joining us this week for Joccupation. Today we'll be discussing charity.
At Vanderbilt Stadium was awesome. Obviously, Ainsley had a great career at in the professional level as well. So um, I'm now a real estate agent for Sotheby's International Realty in Palm Beach, Florida. It's a great market to be in to sell luxury homes, and love what I'm doing, and have two great kids and a great wife. So I've been in real estate since 2003. That's when I first got my real estate license. And then I went on to actually go to graduate school at the University of Florida and get a master's in real estate. So stayed in the SEC and got a master's in real estate and went on to do some development, work for a couple development companies, and actually saw some friends of mine making very good money doing real estate sales. So I kind of said, well, I had in my mind that I really wanted to get an education, go get a master's degree, and go work in development. I thought that's kind of what I was supposed to do. It turns out my skill set was really kind of geared more towards working with people, and kind of going back to our days at Vanderbilt and human and organizational development, which is basically, for those of you who don't know, it's like a business major, but it's more focused on relationships, small group behavior, and kind of team dynamics. So I saw some friends of mine doing very well in residential sales. Kind of resisted getting into that segment of the business, the real estate world, but I eventually got into it after I worked for a couple of developers, and initially had my own company, and then decided that I wanted to join Sotheby's after I started dating my girlfriend, now wife, Frances, who was already working for Sotheby's, and kind of the rest is history. But I would say, some of the things that I learned playing tennis, thinking back to that time in my life. Tennis is a different sport. I mean, it's not unlike other sports where, there's a lot of self-reliance. You got self-discipline, you learn hard work and all that kind of stuff. But tennis is pretty unique because you are on the court by yourself. I mean, there's no other teammates to, kind of shoulder the blame. You can't say I didn't get the ball. You're the only one out there. So if it goes well, all that success is yours. If it does not go well, guess what? All that failure and everything that led up to that point to that failure is, you also have to own that too. But I think the biggest thing I would take away from being a college athlete, and really, going up through the junior ranks of college tennis, and through my whole life, playing since I was 4, it really teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to compete. And really, at the end of the day, I think that it's doing all the things when nobody's watching, right? It's putting in the extra hours. It's staying late at the office. It's getting up early. It's doing all those things. And it's, really, like, not only in the job, but kind of in life in general. It's just really learning how to work hard. And
what advice would you give to that athlete that maybe it's just high school and they're like, you know what, this is just not going to happen. I don't want to practice, or I'm just not good enough, right? Or it's the guy who's been done playing, has a young family, and is like, I've got to provide. What advice would you give to that athlete that's feeling like they can't do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all goes back to training, to repetition, to, gaining that confidence that you can do it. And whatever the situation that it gets thrown at you, the more that you practice, the more that you play, the more experiences that you go through. I remember when I was, I think I was 11 years old, 12 years old, and just getting on to playing, tennis tournaments. And there were players that I didn't really want to play because I was afraid to lose. And it was like practice matches or tournaments, and my coach said to me, he took me aside and he's like, look, you got to start playing some matches. You need to get out there in the court and be in real game situations. You need to learn how to win. So it's that learning how to win, fighting through the tough situations, that the more and more experiences you can build on that from my experience, in sports and in my career has been, there's going to be tough situations. The more real live fire situations that you can go through, the real, challenges. I mean, in real estate, every deal is different. Every person I deal with is a unique situation. And there's challenges that, I have not even dealt with before. So it's a unique situation where, I'm constantly learning, but I'm also every deal I feel like I'm getting better. I'm getting better at what I do, better at the process, better at dealing with different individuals, different personalities. And, going back to your initial thought of the network, I mean, relationships are everything in any business, any situation, in, finding that next job or making that transition to another career, having the right people, having the right mentors, having the right network. I mean, my entire business in real estate sales is based on relationships. It's based on, doing a good job for somebody, having them tell their friends, oh, you got to use Todd if you're going to be buying or selling real estate in Palm Beach.
We have Brooke Malone with us again this week. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Battles.
So as we're talking about relationships, we're talking about charity. I'm a college athlete. My college has a presence in the community. I have a lot of fans. I'm now signing autographs, things I never did before. I'm being interviewed on TV, but I've been raised to give back. From a relationship standpoint, for that person, who should they reach out to?
Absolutely. Start with an organization that is doing work in an area that you are passionate about. So whether it's a health issue, education, whether it's, someone who's working to find a cure for cancer or a women's shelter, find out who is doing the work in the community and how can you leverage your influence in the community on your campus to make their organization better and to move their mission forward. So absolutely reach out to an organization, preferably the person who, is working in community engagement, and find out, what you can do to help.
Right, it seems like their school would be a great place to start to find out those organizations. Because one question that arises is always people who want to do good, but people that are actually getting the work done. So as that person is starting to look out, what are some red flags? What are some things that at least instantly you would say, let's take you off the list?
As far as organizations go?
As far as just reaching out, as far as causes, as far as like we said in previous episodes, time is probably one of the greatest resources we have. And you don't want to waste 6 months at an organization that doesn't do anything. They just meet and talk a lot. What are some ways people can save it or really maximize their time when they're looking at organizations?
With an organization, I would say look at their outcomes. So I would really see what are the numbers that they're doing and what are the results they're accomplishing in the community. And anyone you talk to in that organization, maybe not necessarily from your school, who would know about the organization, but if you talk to someone within the organization that you're interested in working with, they should be able to share that information with you pretty immediately and off the top of their head, if they are doing the work in the community.
As we talk about volunteering, because we've discussed that charity, you can give time, you can give money, but you can also give knowledge, because it's all a free exchange. So as we're talking specifically about volunteering, how does, because you've been in the volunteer space for the majority of your career, can you explain from a charity standpoint, from a relationship point of view, what does volunteering do to that person who actually puts on the t-shirt, gets up at 6 in the morning, goes out with Metro to go clean up the neighborhood?
Yeah, it's always such a great experience. So being in the nonprofit sector, like you said, Ainsley, I've been in this sector practically my entire career. And it is always so amazing to spend a few hours with a volunteer, a few hours in the morning on a Saturday, doing a community cleanup or volunteering with children, because almost every single time when you walk away, you hear about how fulfilled they were, how fulfilling it was for them to be able to give their time, talent, and treasure in a way that is going to make a big impact. So for you, as the person who's volunteering, it may just seem like, oh, I'm giving, 3-4 hours on my Saturday morning or, Wednesday afternoon. But to the person who's receiving that can truly be life altering time you spend with them, whether it's reading with them, helping them with an application, doing a cleanup, repainting an area. It can make a big difference in someone's life. So the best way to receive is to give. You get in what you put out. And when you give of your time, which again, we've said is the greatest commodity that any of us have, it can be an incredibly fulfilling experience.
When it comes to charity and fitness, I mean, there's so much out there to where you are giving your time versus, just making a donation. And of course, the number one thing is definitely Special Olympics. Giving your time to spend time with those kids. Just not necessarily the part of doing the fitness piece, but just talking to them. They enjoy that as far as talking about sports and as far as even playing the game with them. I know one of the biggest thing that that I did in college that kind of, put the full circle thing as far as giving back is when they asked, athletes to go visit the Children's Hospital over at Vanderbilt campus. Now that was a big eye opener too. To just if you ever have visit Children's Hospital, you just see the way that we've been blessed. You as an individual, as an athlete, to when you see these kids in certain situations or whatever they're going through, that they didn't have the opportunity to be blessed as far as us to be able to play this sport because they are fighting a certain disease. Well, I don't want to say a disease, but a certain symptom that they're fighting, may it be physical or mental. And that kind of, to me, was a push to be like, being able to play a sport is a blessing that you definitely should be thankful for and grateful for. Oh, good question. The athletics and community. Within athletics, you had the camaraderie, and that's as I'm getting older, that's one thing when I talk to ex-athletes, that's one thing that's 100% across the board. Like, what do you miss about it? About sports? And everybody always says the camaraderie, about being around each other, and just we're all going for a certain goal, one purpose in mind: win. So now, when you put fitness into it and you get into a community, you can have a community of fitness people, not fitness people, a community of those that want to be in shape. And within that community, what it is, we all are trying to be the best version of ourselves. So we're all trying to be healthy. We're all trying to be fit. We're all trying to eat the right foods. So within that community, it's more like we keep each other accountable. And that's the big thing a community does, is keep each other accountable. For example, if you're within a community and you don't show up at the workout, so what's going to happen? Somebody within that community will call you and be like, hey, B, you didn't show up today. What happened? And for whatever reason you give, and then they'll be like, okay, that's cool, AB, take care of that. But, let us know that you're not going to be there, and please show up tomorrow. 9 out of 10 times, you're going to be like, wow, that made me feel good, the fact that somebody called and checked on me to see where I was and why did I miss boot camp this morning. And they're telling me, well, next time don't miss it. And that's the accountability that you have within a community, to where you have some people that's going to help you push, regardless of what's going on in your personal life. They're still there to make sure you can be the best version of yourself.
Let me ask you this as a trainer, right? So that individual that's in that transition
Mm-hmm.
and they have their purpose and they're clear on what their goals are and they're starting to see progress. They're starting to see their numbers change. How does it benefit that person to invite somebody else along on their journey?
It benefits because basically it goes back to the circle of life or the golden rule. It's like you've done it, you got to where you want to go. How can you do it for others? How can you provide for others what you've been through? And the best way to do it is to bring them along your path, like we talked about earlier. Like once, going back to your analogy about walking through the path, you've done it so many times that there's a new path for it. You know what I'm saying? You say about the grass, you open up a new path, but then at the same time, you say what happens now with the path, the old grass starts to grow back up. So, but how do you get rid of the old grass? Bring somebody along with you and have them create their own path. So that's what it comes to now. Like, in order for you to truly, honestly, in order for you to truly benefit from all that you've done, everything that you've been through, that's where charity comes to effect. Now it's time for you to reach back and help somebody come up too. Don't be selfish and not share your gifts with the world, basically.
What if somebody says, you know what, that's on them. That's their life. That's their choice. That's what they were born. I made a decision. I decided I'm going to do this. What's stopping them from doing it?
Oh, that becomes the selfish part of you. And at the end of the day, that's the part of your mind to where you're being, narcissistic, where you don't want to help individuals out. So it's more like you've been fully blessed. What's so hard about you blessing others? Now, if you are that type of person, then that's that, you don't feel like I should, like you just said, oh, it's on them, it has nothing to do with me. Then it's like, have you really seen the benefit of what you've been doing? You being healthy, you doing the right things, you coming through, God has blessed you so far in what you're doing. Any certain time or any certain day or any certain month, all that can be taken away from you in a matter of a minute or a second. So within that time frame, you don't feel like if you as an individual don't feel like it's worth your time to bring somebody along with you, then it's like you don't understand the whole realm of life, basically.
We have Ashley with us again. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, my pleasure.
This segment is really all about you. This is about charity. This is about nonprofit, the community, and making our community a better place outside of the for-profit business activity. So I guess for most people, can you explain to us what is a nonprofit?
Yeah, so a nonprofit is actually, in a traditional world, one who is focused around causes, okay? So an organization who receives grant monies to be operable and to be connecting with a larger donor base to contribute to furthering a cause. So that is what is a nonprofit.
Could you give us an example of some nonprofits that you know of that are moving the needle and kind of helping us kind of understand their magic?
Yes, absolutely. So, it's very important to realize, again, those who are impactful and making a difference. And so there are several causes. You can have some related to health causes, to sports and recreation. The list goes on, but to point out one in particular is one that I'm actually connected to is the Tyler Robinson Foundation. And the Tyler Robinson Foundation is one who is spreading pediatric cancer awareness. So when I talk about being financially fiscal and furthering the mission and being impactful, we are able to connect with children who are fighting cancer. And so it is really a sensitive arena to be in, because you are connecting with children who are fighting for their lives. And so one of the areas that I am proud to mention is in being financially fiscal, 85 cents of every dollar goes directly to our families. So when you think about in finding that right organization or giving to the right organization, you want to know where your money's going. You want to know where your effort's going. You want to know why it's important to use your platform to spread information about a cause that means the most to you. So that's just an example of one organization, but there are many organizations out there who have causes that will be just, that will grab your heart. And again, it's being able to look at those things that mean the most to you and align them with an organization that's doing the work.
Right, and you bring up a great point. We have a lot of nonprofits that focus in certain areas. So some that come to my mind are Grant a Gift, and also Leaders in Training. These are organizations that are dedicated and they're focused on Grant a Gift is helping kids with autism be as self-sufficient as possible, and Leaders in Training helps kids that come from a poor socioeconomic background to inspire them not only to graduate from high school and attend college, but also come back and be a leader in their own community. So what would be a good way to draw the line between organizations that have a good heart and want to do good versus those that have rolled up their sleeves and they're getting the work done?
Well, it all comes back to grassroots. It is grassroots. The work is not easy, but what happens and what makes it evolve and grow and become better is connecting with those individuals who are willing to roll up their sleeves and say, I want to be a part of this work. I want to be a part of this passion, and this is bigger than us, so let's go. On the other hand, then you have those organizations who portray a message, and on the inside, things are chaotic and out of order, and they're not taking care of home first. And that goes back to, again, your team and valuing who's on your team, who are willing to roll up their sleeves no matter what. And so it really is being able to look at drawing that fine line and being able to circle back to what you're becoming connected to.
Because what I'm hearing in a sports mindset is good teams are good teams. Regardless if they're nonprofit, for-profit, or athletic. You've got to look at is what they're saying, what they're doing, and the impact they're having, is it all aligned?
Right, and is it intentional? There's so much work that is going on, and again, trying to be everything to everyone. Is your work intentional to the cause to bring about a change that we don't see yet? So being able to look past the present and look into the future to say, I'm aligning myself to something great. I'm now connected. It's a part of me. It's a part of what I do. Now, let's do it. Let's be intentional in all of our efforts to make sure that we are bringing about the change that we know that is needed in our community.
Right. Because just as an athlete, as we train, as we compete, you want a nonprofit that has the same work ethic that you do.
Yes.
Ashley, thank you so much. Just in closing, as we're talking about charity, what are some takeaways? What are some high-level points that somebody who is interested in charity can take to start the ball rolling to connecting back with their community?
Everyone has a gym within, and having your gym within, sometimes it takes the breaking down and the understanding of, I know that there's more to my story and my journey. So being able to dig deep and find that gym to then become connected to the greater, the bigger, it will literally change your life. It will change your life. Volunteer. To get to know, volunteer, go out with these organizations, see what they're about. And then you're able to put things into perspective and see how you can put things into motion to better other people.
Thank you for joining us this week for Joccupation. Thank you so much, Ashley, and our other jocks. You're giving us practical advice as to how we can implement and live the words that we're learning about with charity, and the giving is receiving.
Yes,
So
yes, it is.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're here with Courtney again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We're talking about giving back. We're talking about giving, just either giving time, giving information, or giving of your finances. So when we in our heads kind of think of giving and taking, right? A lot of times we think of those as two separate activities. But when we think of charity, can you help us better understand how can I actually get by giving?
Sure. Great question. The act of giving and receiving actually aren't two different things. It's unity. It's one circle, and one bleeds into the other, bleeds into the other, bleeds into the other. So sometimes it's very hard to tell where one stops and one starts. The very act of giving of ourselves, giving of our gifts in some capacity, we receive organically bonds, relationships. We receive a sense of purpose and community. We receive an opportunity to use all of our life's history, all of the knowledge we've gained through all of our hardships and our victories to help empower and lift up others.
When does that, when I say when does that happen, it sounds great. Just like when I tell people, you know, when I got injured, because that's how my career ended, I got injured and had to figure out what to do next. Yes, I got into teaching, right? So I said that not without you really understanding what the 2 years were like, right? So kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit, how could somebody arrive at that space of understanding the circle? Actually, it's the oneness of I'm giving and receiving, but they go hand in hand.
They do go hand in hand. I think you would arrive, I think one would arrive at the space of understanding that you're really dealing with two things complicit with each other when we stop looking at them as cause and effect. When we stop looking at how one affects the other, but rather how congruent they actually are. The 2 years must have been lonely. The 2 years must have been very disorienting. The 2 years must have been confusing. What do I do? How do I plug in? Where do I go? Right? But I would also argue that when you did receive some clarity and when you continued to live out your purpose, the wealth of information that came behind you, the wealth of experience that you had on the field your whole life, we've known each other a very long time, right? Since we were kids. You have a wealth of information behind you to help inform that next chapter. What would you say that you got back from that next chapter of your life? What did you receive from that next chapter?
Perspective.
Perspective, relationship.
Because now being a father, having kids and kind of understanding my parents are people.
Weird, right?
Right.
I know.
Right, and that's the perspective I got. Because when I'm thinking of charity, when I got into teaching, my aha moment was realizing these 42 kids in the class, or at least half of the boys at least, they would trade their best days on earth for my worst day.
That's right. That's right.
So no matter what my up and down was, I struggled through something very few will ever get to. Because people are, oh, you're a former player. It's like, well, you had to first sign a contract to get fired. So you did sign that contract. So I found when I was teaching, I'm able to see and give to others.
That's right.
And it wasn't just the athletes in the class. It was the awkward kid. It was the kid who loves drawing, but in public schooling, there's no real space for that. The artist that can take a history lesson and create a song out of it.
Yes.
It's an incredible, but we're in environments where we want to fit in. We want
right.
to, so when we think of the give and take type of relationship, we're kind of binary.
That's right. And when that binary viewpoint is discarded and instead it's much more congruent, it's much more, almost becomes liquid, it's fluid, right? It moves in and out, and it's really hard to tell when it stops and when it starts, because the very act of giving, the very act of plugging into something bigger than yourself naturally reciprocates back to you. It's inevitable. It happens. It's a law of physics, right? So as that moves, as spiritually, emotionally, as that kind of moves around for people, I hear and I experience often feeling better than I did before I gave.
So the good side of charity, of giving, regardless if it's time, finances, or knowledge, there is a bond. There is that connection. But it does take, like we said earlier, that leap. You've got to leave the house. You've got to reach out and step out. So let's talk a second about the opposite, because it is comfortable, and especially if you make enough, you can create your reality.
So true.
And I can have a huge house and invite everybody over and make my world look good, even though I'm not. So for those that don't have that confidence, that want to stay in that space, what are the long-term effects? Help them kind of see a year or two from now, if this is perpetuated, what will they be looking at later?
I love that you asked that question. So as extravagant as some folks are to, or as some folks create their worlds to be, right? It's very much presentation, right? But it's very isolative in nature. It's very lonely. You're only exposing yourself to only a few different people. You don't have, to use your word, a lot of perspective on the bigger picture, right? So as human animals, when we isolate, when we are alone, we get very, very sick. Isolation and loneliness naturally breed depression and anxiety. We are pack animals, right? We need tribe, and when we don't have that, we get ill. We get very physically and mentally ill. And all of that illness then has to be managed. It's got to be managed with alcohol. It's got to be managed with drugs. You see it with kids now. It's managed with video games. It's anything that can soothe that pain. But when we take a step back out of the pain and say, where's that coming from? You're isolated. You're all alone. And you're not meant to be all alone. You're meant to give. You're meant to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So when we, out of fear or anger or whatever it is, kind of isolate and hole up, we get very, very sick every time. It's not avoidable.
So what's a practical step somebody could take? They know they haven't left the house,
right,
and they blame COVID all they want to,
right,
but they know they didn't leave the house before COVID.
You got it.
What is because I think part of that too is there is that fear. There is a fear. What's something that somebody could do in the moment to either overcome the fear or at least be able to see their fear?
Absolutely. Well, I think the longer a person has been isolating, the more socially anxious they become at the thought of leaving the house, at the thought of giving back, at the thought of connecting to others. They become very comfortable, as we had talked about before, in their own kind of misery, in their own little situation. I would recommend starting very, very small. Set up weekly phone calls, weekly Zoom sessions, have somebody, a friend, come over every week, but have it as a standing date. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m., this is who I'm connecting with. And make sure that you let the person on the other end know, hey, they need to keep me accountable. I need you to help me. I will see you next week. Make sure you call. And if I don't answer, you call again. That kind of thing, right? And so start kind of small. Start very small. Stick with people who feel safe to you, even if it's just one or two people. Totally okay. And then when you do start to kind of reemerge into society, go with them. And it can be short amounts of time. I do recommend setting time boundaries as to when you start to kind of start to connect and get back integrated. Go for an hour. Don't leave the house open-ended. Say, I don't know when I'm going to come back. It'll feel too overwhelming. Say, I'm going to leave my house. I have 60 minutes. I will be back here and say, I can do anything for 60 minutes. So start small. It's small little tweaks create big change and big ripple effects.
So in closing, with charity, is there any advice? Is there anything that you feel, is there any advice that you think could help somebody kind of take the whole conversation, kind of get down to maybe one or two points that they can pull away?
Absolutely. The biggest point of this entire conversation is you are not alone, and you are not in this alone. And even though it feels like everything that you are struggling with and everything that you are thinking about and all the burden that's on your shoulders is only on your shoulders, it's not. And you do not have to carry that by yourself. All you have to do is reach out. All you have to do is speak up. You are a part of a greater good. You are part of a bigger community. You are part of a natural reciprocity of giving and receiving. Let us give back to you. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We look forward to you tuning in next week when we will share with you what our topic will be. And now, your weekly motivational speech.
So my name is Kenny Ladler. I'm from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Went to Vanderbilt University, played in the NFL since 2014, currently a free agent. I'm in the transition phase from playing professional sports to transitioning into the professional world in working in everyday life. And recently, I've just been doing a lot of thinking about self-development and reprogramming myself, reprogramming my mind, changing the way I think from being an athlete into embedding myself into something that I'm passionate about outside of being on the football field. And the pandemic, otherwise I would have probably been playing in a Canadian football league this year, but unfortunately the season was canceled because of that. But now looking at the blessing in the skies of it, it actually had me focus on what can I do outside of football even more. And I've been putting my energy into other things outside of just working out and playing. And it's one of the challenges with doing that is just, it's almost like you start like a baby trying to figure out how to crawl and then walk. So I'm right now currently in the fitness realm because that's what I've been normally naturally good at my entire life. And I've noticed that helping other people get fit and work out has not only been a blessing to them, but a blessing to myself because I'm providing a service for these individuals to reach a better version of themselves. And I feel like with doing that, it's benefiting their health, it's benefiting their families because now they're in better moods, they're eating better, and they're spreading more knowledge that I teach them to the individuals that they're around. So I feel like once I reach one of them, I'm reaching like 5 of them once I'm teaching one. So
when they start saying, okay, I thought I had this dream, and right now it's getting tough and I don't know if I can do it. What do you tell that person in that hour?
What I tell my clients is to focus on the process. The end goal will come, but it's a journey to get there. And I keep telling everybody that it's a marathon. You're not going to get the results that you want over 4 weeks, 6 weeks, because Rome wasn't built in a day, and you can't build your body in a day or in a week. So we got to keep focusing on those small details and getting 1% better each day. Because if we add up those 1% over the course of 3 to 6 months, then we'll see real change in ourselves internally first. Because first we got to change our mindset. We got to change the way we eat. We got to change the way we sleep. We got to change the way we behave on the weekends. We got to change habits first. Once we change our mindset, then we change our body.